The definition that our working definition that I'm hoping is more coming from a lot of wiser heads and from scripture that we're going to talk about today. We're going to first start with founding father Noah Webster's 1828 American Dictionary of the English Language, which it's the first English dictionary printed in America.
Nice. That's awesome.
Noah Webster did fight in the American War for Independence. He was he's considered a founding father. He's considered the father of American education. He's a really cool guy.
That's awesome.
But this is what that dictionary says about liberty, and it's defined as follows. Freedom from restraint in a general sense and applicable to the body or to the will or mind. The body is at liberty when not confined. The will or mind is at liberty when not checked or controlled. A man enjoys liberty when no physical force operates to restrain his actions or volitions. So at first glance, there's more to the definition, but I'm going to stop there for a second. This, so far, sounds like some of those other definitions we've looked at, right?
It's par for the course.
Right. But he goes on to say that personal liberty is further defined as being constrained by the laws of nature or the will of God, as the founders understood the laws of nature to mean the will of God, right? So we have here something that sounds like a contradiction, and I kind of alluded to right before we got into this of freedom without restraints, without limits doesn't work. And Noah Webster, in my firm conviction, has absolutely nailed what that restraint and limit is, or where it comes from. Where's the standard? And that is God, his will, the laws of nature, or the laws that God established in nature. The standard comes from there. That's what restrains our liberty. And that is the only thing that rightly restrains it without our consent.
Sure.
So going on for that, an English statesman named Edmund Burke from the 1700s, he actually, at least for a little while, supported the American cause in Parliament. He's a pretty cool dude. I would highly recommend people go read some of his stuff because he has a lot of great things to say. But he had this quote, and it kind of applies exactly to what we were just talking about. This liberty that is restrained by God, by his standard. Yeah. He said, "Men are qualified for civil liberty in exact proportion to their disposition to put moral chains upon their own appetites. Society cannot exist unless a controlling power upon will and appetite be placed somewhere. And the less of it there is within, the more there must be without. Men of intemperate minds cannot be free. Their passions forge their fetters."
Dang.
So
that's a good, I like that last line. Their passions forge their fetters. It's like a little mic drop. Like, what?
Yeah. In the 1700s.
Yeah.
Yeah. But think about this for just a second. Like, men, we are only qualified for civil liberty in society, in exact proportion to our dispositions to put moral chains upon our own appetites. Or as Os Guinness likes to say it, we are enforcing upon ourselves the unenforceable. Right?
Yeah.
It's this self-control. It's this self-governance that we've talked about in another episode, right?
Yeah.
It's unless you are willing to submit to God's standard of right and wrong and what is necessary for liberty as God defines it, you can't be free in society. A controlling power upon will and appetite must be placed somewhere, and the less we have within ourselves, the more there will be without.
Yeah.
Or as Benjamin Franklin said, people must govern themselves, or by God they will be governed. Right?
Yeah. And that's sort of the great allusion to some of these concepts of liberty, is this idea that, you know, again, we're kind of been talking about this the whole time, but like this idea that just like freedom of passion to just do X, Y, Z is somehow going to like lead you to freedom, when in actuality doesn't. It leads to death. It leads to more constriction that you don't want on yourself.
It ends up destroying liberty.
Yeah.
And a lot of this freedom to do whatever you want concept, or freedom to define your own existence, or freedom to do whatever you want as long as you don't hurt somebody, you know, all these definitions we looked at, it's this idea. They're using the word liberty and freedom, but what the word actually is, and our founders use this a lot, is licentiousness. Freedom used in ways outside of the restraints that God has placed is licentiousness. It stops being freedom when you cross that line.
Sure.
So we have a working definition based on this, and as we'll see in another episode, we'll dig in deep into the scriptures that this is based on.
Right on.
This working definition that we've come up that's based on a biblical worldview, that liberty is not a license to do whatever you want. Instead, liberty is the ability and responsibility to do what God says is right and good, and to enjoy all that God has given individuals to enjoy without oppression or tyranny, whether from individuals or governments.
Right on. That's pretty good, Joel.
Thanks, man.
You come up with that yourself?
Well, no.
Yeah.
It's coming from scriptures. It's coming from a lot of things from other people. People have been saying things like it's not a license to do whatever you want, those types of things for a long time.
Yeah. It's a compilation.
Right. It's a compilation. That's why I like to say it's a working definition. But some of the scriptures, and we'll get into these in our next episode on this, is Genesis 1:26 through 28, Genesis 2:16 through 17, Ecclesiastes 3:12 through 13, and Galatians 5:13 through 14.
Cool.
But yeah, just a real quick break down this definition a little further. So liberty is not a license to do whatever you want. That's that licentiousness we were talking about just a second ago. So it's not that. Instead, liberty is the ability and responsibility to do what God says is right and good, and to enjoy all that God has given individuals to enjoy. I'll stop there for a second, right? Liberty is this, it always comes with responsibility to govern yourself, stay within the restraints. But it's also the ability to keep governing yourself and staying within the restraints.
Right, to actually do it.
Right. It's twofold. It's the ability, but it's the responsibility at the same time. But it's not just this mundane drudge of just, I've just got to keep all the rules.
Yeah.
No. It's also to enjoy all that God has given individuals to enjoy. And I would say first, that enjoyment is in Jesus Christ, and then in the good gifts he gives. And it's to enjoy all this without oppression or tyranny, whether from individuals or governments. Right? Governments and individuals don't have a right, don't have any kind of lawful power to infringe upon liberty in accordance to God's standards.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I think I love that. I think it's a good definition because it's like a positive definition of liberty, right? It's not just like, this are all the things that liberty is not,
right.
And you're left being like, well, what the heck is it then? But I love that, the responsibility, but also the ability, right? Like it's the actual, you have the ability through liberty to live in a society, to live out life in a way that's, pleasing to God, that reflects the kind of life that he desires, but also to be able to enjoy life and to be able to enjoy the things within their appropriate, context and in the appropriate realm. So I think that's right on, man. I love it.